I'm ready. Go.
We'd like to welcome you here to Cache County Council meeting. It is September 26th, and we appreciate those that have attended, that are here, those that will be coming in and out, which happens frequently. We appreciate, again, you paying attention to what happens within the county. We'll go ahead and turn the time over to Council Member Sandy Goodlander for her to give us our opening.
Okay, I'll just give our opening in the form of a prayer. Our Father in heaven, we are so grateful for the blessings that we have. And we're especially grateful for the opportunity to live in a free country and in this beautiful valley, and for the good people that we live and serve amongst. We would ask thee to please watch over and bless those who are struggling and suffering in our neighbors and communities, that we might be able to be aware of them and know the things that we can do to be of help. Please bless us tonight, that as we discuss the business of the county, that we might be able to listen carefully and make wise decisions, and to be able to know the things that are best for those people in the county that we serve. And we pray for these things in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Will you all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. I will now entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded that we approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. How about the approval of the minutes for September 12th and August 15th?
I have a motion on the, gosh, I only looked at 1 minute. For the 12th, the word personnel is misspelled 3 or 4 times in those minutes. It's spelled personal. Just a geeky spelling error.
Okay, any others, changes? Will we make that correction in spell check? So, okay, with the amended word of changing the spelling of personnel, I'll accept a motion.
So moved with the changes noted.
Is there a second? Moved and seconded that we accept the minutes for September 12th and August 15th with that amended change. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes. We'll now go to the report of the county executive, and we do have a really big agenda, so
I'll be quick.
please make it limited.
Thank you. I just want to start off by making sure everybody knows we have our Cheese and Dairy Festival coming up this weekend. Thank you to everybody who's been helping with that. For the council, you may have seen a circulated copy of a Recreation Advisory Committee draft. Love to have any comments you have on that. I've gotten a couple comments that maybe that's a little too formal, doesn't need to be maybe established so formally, but I'm at your direction, however you'd like us to proceed with that. Let me know, and if you'd like me to put that on for the next agenda, I'm happy to do that. But open to your feedback. We had a US 8991 Main Street planning meeting yesterday. This is with UDOT and Logan and North Logan and a number of other representatives working on trying to figure out solutions for Main Street, essentially from the Y to 2500 North. We had a really good meeting yesterday looking at a variety of different scenarios, and that process is moving forward. This is related to the $52 million that was allocated to try to fix Main Street's traffic. I'll keep you updated as we continue moving forward with that. Speaking of traffic and roads, we had a COG Executive Committee meeting yesterday, and we've been working on updating our policies based on a master plan update that we did. And we also just received applications for this year's round of COG funding. So that request will be coming to the council for funding before the end of the year. We're just barely starting off with that process right now. Had a meeting with airport director. We are still working to try to figure out snow removal for this coming winter. Just as a reminder, Logan City helped previously with snow removal at the airport, and last winter they advised the airport that they would no longer be able to do that. So our airport director has been in discussions with our Public Works Department, and I suspect part of the reason why Logan City pulled out is because of the cost, and so there is likely to be some additional cost. Well, it will be significant cost for that. Some of that will likely be in our budget this year, but I just want everyone to know there are going to need to be more discussions related to that. I had the opportunity to attend with our 3 Logan council members, county council members from Logan, the ribbon cutting of the plaza here in Logan on Saturday, and just want to thank Logan City for their partnership on that, and thank the council for supporting that with the funding that the county was able to contribute. It's a beautiful facility. If you haven't made it there yet, I'd recommend that you check it out. It's very nice. They've done a great job on that facility. Also had an opportunity last week to attend a grand opening of a new family history center that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints just opened in North Logan, and also would commend that to you if you haven't had an opportunity to see that yet. It's a very nice facility. Last week I also attended a kickoff for the health department is doing a project now called Communities That Care, in cooperation with our school districts and a number of other local agencies. The primary focus is to have healthier outcomes for our youth and our community. And if you're interested in being involved with that, I can get you in touch with the people who are leading that from the health department. I also went last week and took a tour of Smithfield Canyon and looked at some of the road work that we've been doing. If you'll remember, we had a very, very heavy winter last year, and that resulted in a lot of damage to our mountain roads. And I just want to commend our Public Works Department, our Roads Department, for the tremendous amount of work they've been doing while doing all of their normal jobs and summer maintenance. They've been working throughout the year to try to fix all of these roads. Smithfield Canyon is one of the worst. There's a significant amount of damage. They've repaired almost all of the road up to a certain point where it's washed out so badly that it's not really safe to drive by it. They are likely going to need to get a stream alteration permit to be able to repair, and that's going to take a while. We're hoping still to have it done before winter, but that one's pretty significant. That one and Left Hand Fork are the only 2 remaining that still need to be completed, and just want to thank them once again for their hard work in getting that done. Also, the weekend before last, I attended the 150th anniversary of St. John's Episcopal Church here in Logan, and just want to thank them for their 150 years of service to our community. Great group of people there, and really enjoyed being able to spend some time with them. Also wanted to thank our Development Services Office. The week before last, they hosted a tour of the Cache Bikeway, and a number of community members participated in that, elected officials, city council members, mayors across the valley, to raise awareness of our bike lanes, our trails, and biking throughout our community, and talk about infrastructure projects and how our countywide trail coordinator can help support those. So thank you to that department and the staff who helped with that. And then I do have 2 appointments for the council. If you remember last week, you approved a change to the CVTD Board of Trustees. And this is actually a good thing for the county. Not every jurisdiction represented on the board is going to have more representation, but that is the case for us. We previously had one person representing us, but he only had 1/3 of a vote. We now have one person representing us who gets a full vote. So I'd like to present for the council's advice and consent this evening, Sean Bushman, who has been our representative and has been doing a great job. So I'll present his name right now to be appointed to the Cache Valley Transit District Board of Trustees.
I'll move that we approve Mr. Bushman to continue his service on that Ward.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is he here?
I have not seen him. He was here last time. He was here 2 weeks ago,
Uh,
presentation.
Well, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. He'll represent.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I do have another appointment for you this evening. If you'll remember, some months ago, you passed a change to our appeal process for our land use appeals, and you created a Cache County Land Use Hearing Officer position, which is an appeals hearing officer that is in a quasi-judicial role to be able to hear land use appeals. And the intent was to hire somebody who, or appoint somebody into that position who had a legal background, an attorney who could make rulings on these cases, and ideally somebody with some land use background who would understand the complexity of these cases. So we've been advertising for that position, and we have received an application from Robert Patterson. And Mr. Patterson is here this evening. He's here in the second row. Mr. Patterson is an associate with Blaisdell Church in Johnson, and his practice focuses on advising local governments as general counsel on all matters of municipal and state law. He's been involved in contract law, real estate law, development agreements, settlement agreements, interlocal agreements, economic development, all aspects of local government law, including a significant amount of land use law. And he litigates land use disputes regarding zoning, road regulations, adverse condemnation, constitutional claims, and contract disputes. And after graduating from law school, he served, clerked for Chief Justice Matthew Durant of the Utah Supreme Court from 2015 and 2016. And he has his Juris Doctorate from Brigham Young University. Is that right? Okay. He has represented a number of cities and currently does from throughout the state. However, I uploaded all of his resume and letter of interest and everything into your folder for you to review if you'd like this evening. But I would like to present Mr. Patterson's name for your advice and consent this evening to be appointed as our Cache County Land Use Hearing Officer.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. We approve Robert A. Patterson as the Cache County Land Use Hearing Officer. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay. I will say nay. Nothing personal. How we got to this point really makes me mad. So anyway, okay, you are approved though.
Thank you, Rob. I appreciate your willingness to serve. I'm looking forward to working with Rob. He has a great amount of experience. I've worked with him in the past, and he's a professional and knows his stuff. So thank you for being willing to help us out. To finalize my executive report this evening, I'd just like to mention that it has been a really busy last couple of weeks, as you heard by my report and the various meetings. That's just some of them that we've been involved in over the last couple of weeks, but we've also been working pretty hard to finalize the tentative budget for the council. So we have that ready to deliver to the council at this time, and it is also in your packets and your folders as well. And I just would like to start out by thanking Phil from our finance department, as well as the staff that has supported him in preparing our budget. This is a tremendous amount of work, and we have until November 1st to deliver this to the council. I think we all recognize that that's not realistic, and we need to get it to you sooner. We had hoped to have it ready for you 2 weeks ago, but as you know, we've had significant changes in our finance department, and that has just made that impossible for us to be able to deliver it to you that early. It is still more than a month earlier than statute requires, and we hope that's enough time for you to work through the process of getting your questions answered and reviewing the budget. But we have prepared a couple of things, and I'm going to turn the time over to Phil, and he'll actually go through more details. I just want to give a brief overview. And I also would like to thank all of our department heads, including our elected official department heads, for their work on the budget, because really the way the budget works is the finance department doesn't write the budget. Each department head writes their budget. They propose what their needs are. They determine and project what their revenues and expenditures are going to be, what their capital expenditure needs are, and they submit all of that to the finance department, has the finance department compile that into one document for your approval. But I just want to point out the department heads and all of their work and their staff who support them in everything they've done to put this together. This is a $100 million budget. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of moving pieces. It's a lot of information to be able to put into this budget. So I just want to thank everybody who has been involved in that process. And I also want to point out that, and you'll notice throughout the budget, there are many departments where requests are going down. There are many places where you'll see people using less money, and I want to thank everybody for their willingness to be as frugal as they can. As I've said many times in the past, that my philosophy on local government is that our number one responsibility is to keep the public safe, and our number two responsibility is to keep their money safe. And we need to do the best we can to take care of their money, and that includes spending it wisely. So if you look in your packet, there's a top 10 highlights page, and I just want to point out a couple of those, and I'll turn the rest of the presentation over to Phil. But this budget does not propose a tax increase. The certified rate that has been calculated, we estimate, will generate about $17 million in property taxes for the general fund, and about $1 million for the health fund. And the way that we have structured this budget would not require any tax increase, so we're not proposing one. I also want to point out that our rainy day fund is nearly fully funded. We have limitations from the state on how much of a balance we can have in the bank, and it's not officially called a rainy day fund, but that's essentially what it is. It's money that we save up in case something comes up that we're gonna need a significant amount of money for that maybe we weren't anticipating. Some of those expenses are anticipated, like capital projects. But based on the finance department's calculations and interpretation of the state requirements, their estimate is that our limit is about $30 million. That's the most we could have in that fund. We have about $27 million in that fund. So that fund is in great shape, very healthy, and I just want to point out, I guess, a couple of general concepts related to that. So in this budget, you have a balanced budget before you. However, we are using some fund balance for one-time expenditures, and that's the way I think it should be. Is that we should, whenever possible, avoid using one-time money for ongoing expenses. The one exception to that you'll see in the budget is the fire ambulance budget. We have been historically using ongoing general fund dollars for that. Our interpretation is that that is maybe not totally in line with state law and what's allowed, and so we've changed the way that that's done, but it's really just a temporary fix. It needs to be addressed. And I should point out that the fire board has had several discussions about this. And there are several things that can be done to address it, but that's something that's going to need to be addressed. And sorry, I jumped ahead a little bit. That was number 7, but that was kind of related to one-time funds. And then I just want to mention sales tax revenue growth. We saw some pretty big spikes during the pandemic years with sales tax. And in looking at what this year has been and what the projections it seems to have returned to the pre-pandemic levels and a pretty steady level. It's historically been 4, 5, 6%, and that's what we're seeing it at now, and that's what's in the budget. So that brings in about $10 million per year into our budget, and something else I want to point out about that is the fact that $10 million is actually a really healthy amount for sales tax. I've seen some other local governments in our county even who have a very significant portion of their budget that's paid for with sales tax, which is risky because sales tax is one of the most volatile sources of revenue for our budget. So the fact that that's only about 10% of our budget that we're using sales tax for is a good thing. That's pretty healthy. It's good that we have a diversified set of revenue sources so that we're not overly reliant on one particular revenue source. With that being said, I probably stole a little bit too much of Phil's thunder, but just once again, thank you so much, Phil, for your help in putting this together, and I'll turn the rest of the presentation over to Phil.
So I'll be quick. David did cover most of this already. We just wanted to also point out, that the county is supportive of, in points 4 and 5, very supportive of the CJC and the senior center. You can see how much is being contributed to them. Some of that is related to capital projects. So, they have a fund balance and they receive some aid, and anytime they need additional help, those will, they just don't have the funds. The general fund is usually pitched in. And I know they've been appreciative of that. David did hit on this, talking about the fire and ambulance. One thing that's been reviewed a lot this last year is what constitutes municipal services. In the state code, it talks about how the county may not deposit revenue derived from fees, taxes, or other source based on a county-wide assessment or from county-wide services or functions into municipal service. And then inside of the state code, it talks about, right on top of the list, the first thing they talk about is fire protection services. So that's in our general fund. And so we wanted to address the fact that, one, there's a lot of discussion right now on how to fix that, but since to better follow the state's code, we wanted to just take that from fund balance. The reason why taking it from fund balance isn't using general assessed revenues is because inside the fund balance there's a significant amount that's sitting there from ARPA and CARES that was grant money provided that they gave you an allowance for that you're able to use against just general expenses. And so that is one of the we'll say significant differences. You'll kind of see that on page on page 7 of your packet, the tentative budget. In there, David also then talked about one-time capital purchases. So you'll see there's a line item for capital purchase, there's a line item for fire and ambulance, and then there's a line item for recorder and trails. One thing that we haven't brought up is that in that discussion on what is municipal and what is serving the entire county, the trails department was determined, to be servicing all the county. The trails may just be in the unincorporated areas, but they assist significantly with the cities in helping do different trails, and then the entire county can use the trails. And so this budget presents the trails department being moved into the general fund. And so any fund balance that they had available to them in the municipal services has also been transferred over to it. Just a couple other highlights. Because of this, especially because of the fire coming out, there's one of the things that this budget doesn't encompass, talk about all the different changes and stuff. I've been in discussions with Amy, I say HR director, I know she has a different title now, but she is still working with the compensation committee. And so one of the things that we wanted to be able to present is some availability, current operation revenue surplus for 2024 to cover those potential increases. And we know that they're going to be recommended. I don't have the dollar amounts yet because they're still discussing that, but there is about 2.6 million available to help cover. Right now, we're budgeting a contribution to fund balance due to operations that should help cover those compensation adjustments if you guys pass that. So that will help you as you build the council's budget in making those decisions. So, as always, there's a handful of new positions being requested, and that is listed there. One that I would like to kind of point out that was the GIS department is requesting a position. This is different than the other ones because in 2018 they actually had 4 full-time employees. They're down after someone either left or retired, I'm not sure. In 2018 they decided not to replace them. Well, we're 5 years later, 6 years later, and they feel the need to replace that. And so they're going to show an increase, an additional person, but they're technically filling a position that's been open for quite a few years. So wanted to just kind of pass that on. Do you have any questions? I know you just got this yesterday. Mike and I are going to meet and kind of answer some of those questions tomorrow. So if you have any now, I'm here to answer them. But if not, available for questions. Yes.
So it seems to me on the fire that we're applying a very stringent code for something that can be used for the whole county. Our fire department responds to other cities when they're taxed heavily with a big fire.
Mm-hmm.
Our fire department also fights fires in outlying lands, public lands, and everything else. Our fire department responds to a wreck or a car fire that may be somebody from a municipality. So I understand that that's law, but it seems to be that ought to be something that can be looked at heavier from a standpoint.
I think that's a valid point. I talked to Rod about this. He's going to be out of town, so he wouldn't be here to answer some of those questions. I know they're looking at it. I know, Rod has had some ideas. And this was, although that is correct, maybe there could be a balance of saying this much is provided, but it's also on the flip side to say that we can have a big budget that the general fund covers just because they do help, type of thing. So you do have a point. I think there could be a balance found in that.
Because I mean, if you start looking at a fee, is that a fee? Well, you were called out to a fire, or you were called out to certain areas. I get worried about a fee on something like that when it is a safety aspect of what we should be doing for the county. So I just hope that somebody's looking at that a little bit deeper, and I understand it's state, so maybe all of us need to talk to our legislators and say, hey, give this a look, because I think there are some services that our fire department brings to the whole county.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and that's maybe one of the reasons why we chose to leave it in the general fund for now, until a good solution is provided, than just rashly moving it over to the municipal right away. So yeah. Any other
I have
questions?
a question, Phil. The 27 million that's in our rainy day fund,
Yes.
how much of that, I know you said some of it's CARES or ARPA, is any of it encumbered? Or is that, I know we were able to replace some other things with it. Is that totally unencumbered, or?
That's totally unencumbered.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
The CARES that's still available is all actually unrecognized revenue right now.
Okay.
So anytime we talk about ARPA, will be monies that are sitting in an unearned revenue account, not our fund balance.
Okay.
Yes.
Do we have any knowledge, or can we, and I asked this of the fire department earlier, we have all this money from ARPA, everybody's enjoying it and seeing it, but I get concerned down the road when we have no ARPA money, what we're going to do for a budget.
That is a good question. I mean, off the top of my head, a lot of the projects were capital awards. The biggest portion, I think, is in the road department. A lot of the culverts they're working on. And so those capital type projects aren't operational. So I would have to look and identify each one, whether they're ongoing operational ones or capital, to better answer that. That is a good question. Because I know there's a few software packages that are being funded by ARPA that after 2026 will need to come out of general fund revenues.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions for Phil? If not,
Yes, are you gonna, okay, so the last thing, sorry, one thing I wanted to say, my understanding with the tentative budget, is that David's presented it and then it'll be accepted, but it's not in your budget. So we're just acknowledging receipt of David's and then you guys get to, make changes. Department heads, technically, David talked about when his deadline was. Department heads still technically have until the end of this month to make changes. And so this going forward, any changes, even though they have the right to make changes, we plan on making any changes in the spreadsheets that have or will be shared with you very soon. And we'll have an amendment sheet to kind of show any kind of change going forward. So.
As we talk about that, when we look at the budget, it would, and I'm sure as we get down in the weeds, there is that, but just a broad scope of saying, here was the budget in 2022, here was the budget 2023, here's the anticipated 2024, the increase, and maybe a note of why that increase is there, so that we have a comparison from a quick shot. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. Well, what kind of percentage increase, or there'd be a lot of notes if we did it for every single change.
We know that there have been some departments that have said, okay, we're not going to need the full budget. Kudos to them and thank you. But it would also be nice to know what they were able to cut rather than just a cut versus here's a raise or we're asking for more and here's why.
Okay.
So
I'll work with my staff on a potential way to better show that.
I mean, I don't, if the other council members would like to see that, I just think that would help some.
Yeah,
Okay.
the more detail, the better.
Okay, we can do that.
Bill, before you leave the stand there, I just want to take a moment to thank you for your service. In case everybody doesn't know, Phil has accepted another position, will be leaving the county. And I just want to thank him for his service to the county and yours, his expertise. He has done so much to help us to be in a strong financial position all the way up until right now, just helping us with questions and with this budget and with so many things on a day-to-day basis. Phil, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us and good luck in your new endeavor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Phil.
Okay, thank you. Let's go ahead and move on, because we've got a public hearings that are to be at 5:30 here. The John C. Bailey Building to the Bear River Health Department. Who is speaking? Okay, we'll give you just a few minutes, then we'll open up the public hearing.
Thank you. So,
You've already explained quite a bit of it, but
right. So really this is to comply with state code, which is Utah Code 175312, subsection 5A, which requires the county, before they dispose of significant parcel of real property, the county shall allow an opportunity for the public to comment on the proposed disposition. Now, a disposition doesn't mean necessarily selling it. It could also mean leasing. And that's what the county wants to do, is to lease the John C. Bailey Building to the Bear River Health Department to allow them to continue operating out of this building. And so this public comment is for that very purpose, to allow a public hearing to comment on that particular disposition of property.
okay, we'll go ahead. Any questions that you have before we turn it over? Okay, we'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. Anyone that would like to speak? As you do, you come up here and just state your name. I appreciate it. Be sure and state your name, okay?
Jordan Mathards, Director of the Bear River Health Department. We would really appreciate moving forward with this lease. That would allow us to continue to operate as a health department in Cache County. So it'd be really beneficial for us.
Will this lease fit within your budget?
We're figuring out how we can come up with the funds, but we'll work it out.
Good. Anyone else that would like to? I'll entertain a motion then to close the public hearing.
Motion. Second?
Moving second that we close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, appreciate that. Let's go ahead to Resolution 2023-14, opening the 2023 budget public hearing. Anyone going to speak in behalf of that? Just a moment, and then we'll open up the public hearing.
Okay, so one of the things that we've gone through and identified is any amendment in here that is just moving monies between their own department starts with interdepartmental. That way you can see that they're not asking for more funds. Couple highlights from this one is that just in the general section is we got the certified tax rate, and so the first amendment is just to update those numbers. There's 4 different property taxes that we receive. 3 of the 4 when increased, only one of them, which is the multi-county assessing collecting, went down. That one doesn't hurt us at all because that's just a pass-through to the state. So the 3 that did all increase, are all going to benefit us. The second one is, interest rates are really high right now. So if you're trying to buy a home, it can hurt you. But if you have, like we've talked about, some rainy day fund that's significant, it is building us some interest. So the estimate for 2023 was made in 2022 when the interest rates were not high. And so they've changed significantly. And so we're amending this one to increase it to a total of $2.5 million in interest, which is one helpful way to also help balance the general fund. The third one is because of all the changes in the finance department, one employee was moved over to the treasurer's office. This budget amendment is to move that person over and give them the treasurer's office enough budget for the rest of the year. The reason why this doesn't show as a decrease in the finance divisions department now is because in discussions we felt that it would be good to backfill that position, partly because we have someone retiring in a year, and so we will be able to provide training to that person before that other person leaves. And so we're not decreasing the amount of people in the finance department's divisions budget. We also increased the treasurer's office for some education and training, where they're going to be dealing more with CASEL. We felt it would be important for them to go to the CASEL conference coming up. The number 4 request is yes.
We're talking about CASEL, but weren't we talking about in some ARPA a different software thing, and so we're going away from CASEL as well?
So that is a good question. That was the debate. Do we go to CASEL? Well, for the time being, right now, ARPA is on, or the new software is on hold. And so because it's an immediate need for that office, we felt that and it worked out that the conference is literally in 2 weeks, that it was good timing to get that training. You're right. It may, in a year be going away, but it was, needed right now, urgent right now. So.
Okay.
The fourth one is this was just to budget the ARPA request for the nonprofit entities. This is a general just amount of the $515,000 because it's an outside. We can just do it to contributions to other entities. And this allows you then, later today, if you, I think it's on the agenda to discuss who will be receiving that, we then have the budget to be able to do those right away. The fifth one is also there were 3 component units, and because they are not inside of our financial statements, there's still just a contribution to other entities, contributions for relief. So those ones have already been awarded specifically. You can see that in the description. The 6th amendment, a lot of all the changes has been happening is also the review that was done by the UOVC. This is to budget the repayment of their review findings. So this will be to remedy all that.
I noticed you've got that coming out of fund balance.
Yes, and that is because it was put into fund balance in prior years. Revenue received from prior years that was put into fund balance, and so that cost is going to be funded by fund balance.
So the creative accounting about maybe going back in and changing a previous year's.
So, yeah, so if this was done if we had done this another way, the other way could have been to pay it out of prior years and reduce fund balance. And in the financial world, you would have called that a restatement of the fund balance. But in discussions with the attorney and with our auditors, since it's not material and not forced to do that, we were able to show it in the current year budget as our good faith of paying this back. So, the last one, I think, in the general section is earlier this year, we had budgeted for the opioid settlement payments. We have a 85% that goes to the health department, 15% is going to be for county projects. That actually was for the 2022 monies. This budget is to budget for the 2023 monies that we have already received. So this is to get it, to start establishing it. We've got it in the 2024 budget to start picking this up every year. So other than this, a lot of the department requests, and we can go into more detail if you have questions, but maybe after the public hearing side of it, or do you have questions now?
I noticed there's quite a few of them that apparently insurance.
Yes, actually, that's a good question. The insurance calculation is, we have 3 different types of insurance. We have property, general, and auto. And so those come in 3 large, we pay those out in 3 large payments. Historically, starting at 2022 and previous, all of the other funds received an allocation for that, but the general fund, it was all going into one non-departmental account. Last year, very recently, we started breaking that out to each department to show what their insurance costs are. Because it's very new and because insurance have increased so much, these are just to fix those estimated amounts from breaking it out. So
From all 3 sections?
From all 3 sections, yeah. So the auto one, we take a sample of all the cars and break that one out. So if your department doesn't have a car, then you shouldn't be hit by that. The other
Can
2.
we label those so we know what that insurance is going to? Like if I understand sheriff, he's going to have a large on the insurance for cars.
Yeah, we could. Right now it's just a formula that we import lump sum, but we could break those out for all 3.
I mean, because as I was going before, they were talking about that one department was going from 5 vehicles to 6 vehicles. And so
Yes.
I would suspect that their insurance
Will go up, yes.
will go up that amount as well. But then those who have vehicles should have 2 or 3 items being represented for an insurance cost.
Correct. Right now, the allocation is just, we identify them individually, but then we lump them together. But since it's an import, we can break it out, so that would be fine. So that's something we can do.
How about the savings on all those vehicles that we don't have, that we're paying insurance on?
Don't have those numbers for you, sorry.
I didn't get an answer, did I?
Yeah. Put your car on there.
Okay. Okay, other questions?
Let the public then.
Thanks, Phil.
Okay.
Thanks, Phil.
Okay, we'll now open up the public hearing. Anyone would like to speak about the budget hearing?
Mr. Chair, if I could just say something about the repayment to UVOC, and this is for finance's benefit too. Because those are out of several different years, it's just not going to be one lump sum payback to UVOC. It's going to need to be, it doesn't change anything the council does. It's on the other side. So I can get you the information for the contact down there that can tell you the exact amounts, because it has to go into different accounts for them because it comes from multiple different years. It doesn't change what the council's doing as far as the budget goes. Just know that it won't be paid out in one lump sum to UVOC. It'll show us different transactions depending on how much we received in each of those years that needs to be paid back.
Totally
78,000.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
And maybe that's a good time to mention the fact that we did just receive the award letter from them for this year's funding.
Yes, our VAWA funding was activated this last week, and VOCA funding should be activated this week. On a side note, if the federal government shuts down, those payments reimbursement payments stop until it's opened back up, so. It's just from one thing to another with
One
that.
thing to another.
Okay.
That was not a fun process. Okay, anyone else would like to speak?
Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Moving second, we close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Okay, I think we've got another, nope, that's all the public hearings. We'll come back and talk about the budget here a little bit. 9A. Let's go back up to, if we can, 6A. This is your show, isn't it? Okay.
You're welcome.
Is this gonna project up there yet? Okay, just takes a minute. No problem. Thank you, council members. My name is Chris Sands. I am chair of the Cache Open Space Advisory Committee. And we've been working diligently over the last 4 months and are at a point in our work where we're going to start sending you some stuff. We've recommended approval on a couple items I'll touch on here. Councilwoman Buse is ex officio on our committee. And so we started asking her, how does the council want to interact with us? We've got a number of deliverables we're going to be recommending to you. And do you want to see them all at once, or should we take them as they come, more or less? So I think that's why I'm here, just to give a couple of minutes and then answer any of your questions, just let you know what we've been up to and where we're going. We were formed by ordinance on February 14th earlier this year, following the passage of the open space bond last November. And you officially appointed us, along with the county executive, on April 11th. So about 6 months ago, just a little under. And these are the members of the committee. I mentioned myself as chair, Eric Elison, vice chair, Claire Ellis, Brent Thomas, Dave Rayfield, Kendra Penry, and Jody Harris are, all of us are voting members of the committee. And then Councilwoman Buse and Reagan Wheeler are ex officio expertise serving on the committee. So that's your...
Chris, before you
Go
leave
ahead.
that page,
Sure.
I know one of the concerns that's been raised is whether or not there's agricultural experience represented in this group.
Right.
Do you know which of these members have agricultural experience?
I do, more or less. Certainly Jody Harris is an active farmer. As most farmers and ranchers, they have full-time jobs as well as their agricultural or working farms positions. But Jody Harris in particular, and then of course Reagan Wheeler as our agricultural expert serving in an ex officio capacity. Now, having said that, the rest of us might be like myself, kind of a hobby farmer from time to time. Been working on ag preservation issues for over 20 years, and I know the other members of the committee, Claire Ellis also has, I believe, a farming background as well on the committee. So I think I hopefully captured that correctly.
Thank you.
Yeah. Our schedule is, once we got going, and we determined that we'd like to meet twice a month. So the first and third Mondays of each month, we're scheduled. We started off as an hour and a half long meeting, and now that's migrated to 2 hours. as we've continued to, work diligently and productively, frankly. And so you can see this list here. The last 2 dates are coming up next month for our October meetings. We didn't start from scratch with the work that we're doing. We've looked at a number of programs. I probably haven't included all of them on here, but these were some key ones that we focused on. But suffice it to say, we didn't want to reinvent the wheel. We looked at other open space preservation bond, public bond initiative type programs in Wasatch County, Salt Lake County, Summit County, and then 2 counties up in Montana that have very robust and productive type systems. We're also concurrently, as we do our work, trying to fit in hearing from other agencies and organizations that support open space programs. The top 3 there we've already heard from, so the Department of Ag and Food, the NRCS and the local Land Conservancy, Bear River Land Conservancy, we've had come to our meeting, make brief presentations. It's mostly for our committee members to ask questions, what do you do? What's your capacity? How much money do you have in your programs? What types of projects fit into your funding programs? And so the other organizations and agencies that I have listed up there are ones that we've talked about and are in the process of inviting over the course of our meetings. And so we, maybe every other meeting or so, we try to fit one of these in so that we can learn from them about the work that they do for the benefit of guiding what we're doing for you and the citizens of the county. And this is the last slide I want to talk about, but based on what we've learned so far, this is kind of an outline of the direction that we're going in terms of developing applications for potential funding. The first thing we did was recognize that there's kind of 2 courses of funding. They're really an apple and an orange, and so it doesn't make sense to merge them. And that's, on one hand, the open space funding, so purchase of development rights for putting a conservation easement on a property, for example, from a willing landowner. And then the other component is trail funding, where we're likely to be receiving an application from a local government who says, we've worked with landowners in this area. We have a need for this length of trail connecting A to B. And as you can imagine, the type of criteria that you would look at to evaluate those projects is likely going to be fairly different. And so that's why I say we have sort of 2 pots that we're focusing on. And in that regard, we envision a 2-step process potentially for each of those. And so the first bullet you'll see there is a level one, open space funding project application. And so we've already created, it's a maybe 3-page, tried to make it 2-page, but with 7 of us, we all have our own ideas on what should and should not be on the form. But it's a simple 3-page application, and then there's a level 1 trail funding project application. They're a little bit different, but have some similarities. We're just looking for basic information from for potential projects to fund through the open space bond monies. So in both cases of level 1 open space and level 1 trail, we have created those and voted to recommend those to you all. And so I imagine you'll be seeing those before too long when Councilwoman Buse will bring it to your attention when it makes sense to fit it into your schedule. And then what we're working on our next couple of meetings, I imagine, is on the evaluation criteria. And so if you can imagine, a landowner wants to sell their development rights on their property and put a conservation easement. they'll make application to the county. We're looking for, you know, name, address, parcel number, parcel or parcels, numbers, and, you know, basic questions in that regard. Is the title clear? Are you working with a land conservation organization as part of your proposed project, et cetera? Those applications will come in, and we're in the process now of working on evaluation criteria. So how do we evaluate each of those applications that come in? I mean, if we put these out for folks to apply to, and we get 2 applications, you know, maybe step 2 is not necessary, because I'm sure we could fund two projects. But I think some of us certainly are anticipating a lot of interest in these programs, and will likely receive a lot of applications. And so how do you start to determine both objectively and then at some point maybe subjectively how those projects should rank, if you have to prioritize them? Focus on the best ones to fund first, and then work your way down the list as your funding will allow. So we're working on those evaluation criterias for both the level 1 applications, as well as creating some level 2 evaluation criteria. So once we receive your initial application, we'll take a look at it. If it looks like a project the county's interested in, we'll ask for a level 2 application, so more information that then we can also evaluate for creating a list that we will come back to you for recommendations on. So that's basically the framework. I don't know if you guys have any questions. We can also, you know, I can show you each of these components, or, you know, the status of each one if you want to. But I know your time is precious, so I just leave it up to you to tell me what you'd like to know right now.
Questions?
Two questions.
Yes, sir.
So, I also believe there's going to be a lot of interest, and so there's going to be applications. So, if, for instance, we're talking about a farmer who's looking to put it in, take away the development rights, put it in conservatorship, that could eat up a lot of money. So are we going to say, hey, here's application and here's a deadline, so that we know that we're dealing with all of those on that issue, rather than saying in 6 months another one rolls in and we say, oh, we already had that out?
Right.
Has a deadline been considered on that?
No, it's certainly something that we've talked about. Do we put these applications, this opportunity to apply, do we just put it out there and just leave it up, you know, until we get, you know, all of our funding away? Or do we, you know, target and say it's open for 30 days, we close that period, we work on that, and then we open up the next period, you know, assuming there's still funding available to fund projects. So I think we're wrestling with those ideas, I think, amongst ourselves right now. And I don't know that we certainly don't have an answer right now for you, but I think we may be able to come to you with a recommendation. But I think that's a good question for you all too, is what should the structure of, you know, making the applications available for projects, and is there a window for that?
Can you go back one slide?
Sure.
Because it would be nice if we correlated that with those, like the federal government on agricultural or the state, to say, here's matching funds we can correlate this with, but there's a deadline. So
Agreed. And those are the kinds of questions when we've had representatives from these organizations come and speak to us. Those are the kinds of questions that we've been asking. You know, what is your funding cycle, and when is your application period, and that sort of thing. I think we do see more commonly an application period that has an open and close date, just to be able to manage the program, and then, you know, either do that again each year or as needed.
Okay, my last question, and this one's gonna be a funky one because everybody hears about the corridor coming into Cache Valley. Is that part of the scope, or because it seems like the corridor is untapped ground, which is agricultural ground? And if we are talking corridor, I have some people who are talking about that, and how are we going to decide that? Does that make sense? I mean, does the corridor trump somebody who's out in Clarkston saying, I want land conservatorship out here versus, oh, here's some agricultural land in the corridor? Where do we weigh and what's going on there?
I think that's part of the evaluation criteria that we're working on. And so, for example, we can have a basic GIS exercise. We can find out how close a parcel is to a county or state highway, county road or a state highway, that sort of thing. That would tell us it's highly visible. For example, it could target the specific corridor you're referring to. So I think we have ways that we can understand how important those factors are, and we can weigh them one way or the other. I think that's really part of the evaluation criteria. So the answer to your question is yes. I mean, we can do things like that. We can say we have an area that we're targeting, or that scores better, for example, than the other projects.
I will just say kudos and thanks to Chris Sands. This man has served the county a long time.
That's why you have gray hair.
So thank you for all you've done. I mean, you've been on planning and zoning
A lot of
for
years.
a long time. So as a council, we respect that and appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you so much for your service. I just have a question about one of the other criteria. The one that I hear about the most from citizens that they're most concerned about is public access. Can you tell us a little bit about what you think will be the criteria related to public access, how much that's going to weigh, whether or not you think your committee will make that an absolute requirement, or how that's going to play out?
Right. Public access is a component that we have explicitly in our applications and in our evaluation criteria. You know, is the project, is the landowner willing to allow public access? Now, obviously, if it's a trail project, that's what it is. It's all about access. So that's maybe not germane to your question, but it's more of the open space and conservation easements. You know, not every landowner is going to be willing to allow for public access. I don't want that to hold us back from securing projects that are really important to the county, you know, for all the other reasons. But certainly we are using that as a scoring criteria in our evaluation. So we'll see how that plays out, I think. We'll know more. A lot, you know, we have a lot of discussion amongst ourselves. We ask a lot of questions, and a lot of it is because we have no idea what to expect. You know, what are kind of applications are we going to receive? And I think we're starting to acknowledge amongst the committee that, you know, we're not going to have every single answer. It's quite a diverse set of opinions on the committee itself. And so coming to an agreement from everyone on exactly what to include has taken some work. But I also think that everyone's at a point now where we understand, hey, we're not going to have all the answers. We're going to do the best that we can. And we want to create tools and processes that are flexible, so that when we get that first tranche of applications and we say, oh, gosh, I really wish we were looking at this criteria or asking these questions in our applications, that we can update and revise those as needed. Yes, ma'am.
Chris, thank you again for all the work you're doing in this and the rest of the committee. It's a lot of time. And you had asked me to direct a question to the council that we haven't yet answered, and that is if we want to open up accepting that round one or that preliminary type of application. And so that's a question I want to direct to the council, is if were willing, I passed out the last council meeting, the level 1 application, we
For
as
the,
a
for the
committee-
open space one,
the
yep.
open space one. We, as a committee, had workshopped and worked on, and if we're able or want to open that up for the public to start sending in their applications.
Yeah, and we, at our last meeting, that Councilwoman Buse was not able to attend, we also passed the level 1 trail funding application. So we have both of those ready, and as she described, we're wondering, and we have differing opinions on the committee itself, but does it make sense to the council to go ahead and put these out there and let's start receiving applications, even though we're still working on some of the evaluation criteria and that sort of thing? So we did want to run that by you, and don't know that you'll have an answer tonight, but happy to answer questions.
I'd like to hold
solicit.
up on that because there are some other things I'd like to hear, but I agree we need to get going on it, but I'm not ready for a decision tonight.
Yeah, I feel like if you're, it's kind of a two-sided thing.
Yeah.
If you don't have the evaluation criteria done, in some ways it'd be easier to refine that when you see what comes in, like, oh, here's how we can do it. But then on the other hand, is that fair to have that criteria based on the applications? So I think the sooner you can put that evaluation criteria down to what you think is going to be, how you're going to evaluate things, would be a really good thing for us to see.
Yeah, and I think that's forthcoming in the next month or two. We'll have those other components ready for review.
But that pretty well tells the landowner, well, if this is the judging criteria, this is what is expected, that may tell them, yes, I want to be a part of it, no, I do not want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Because then they will see the ambitions of, what's happening.
That's true. That's true.
Also on our end, we need to look at our funding mechanism. We haven't done anything to actually do the bond yet. So on our end, we need to explore whether that's a bid or, in the exploratory committee, got general idea we consulted with Zions, but interest rates have changed. There's a lot that has changed in the past year since that time. So on our end, we need to be able to move forward with that as well, and that's actually getting the funding mechanism.
Yeah, it's hard to put applications out if you haven't got the money yet.
Yeah.
There's that, but,
Or you can put the applications out and say, well,
Sure.
you're in waiting.
Sure, sure. These projects take, any of these agencies that we've talked to will tell you, they take at least a couple of years.
Yeah, a couple of years.
And so, I don't think it's, and of course, we want to partner our funding with these other agency funds so that we can, extend our influence to more projects through the county. And so our timeline is going to probably mirror theirs at some point. And so we do have the benefit, I think, in that regard, of a little bit of time to work out some of these other things concurrently to maybe opening this process up. So
I have a question about the funding. How does that exactly begin? Is it through the treasurer's office with the tax money that's coming in, or do we as a council
We
need
have
to
to get the loan.
But who does that?
The bond.
I know, but
It's already been approved through
Bond
Zions
company,
Public
yeah,
Finance.
somebody
So we have to choose
issue
a bond
municipal
company.
bonds.
It's already done.
That would be through the finance department. The finance department within the last year did an updated request for proposals for municipal advisors. And there was a committee that reviewed those, and Zions Bank was selected to continue as the bond advisor for the county. So the finance department would work with Zions to have those bonds issued.
Okay, other questions? We'll
Okay.
hear more, I know.
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Thanks,
Appreciate it.
Chris.
You bet.
Okay, let's review approval of the ARPA applications for nonprofit organizations.
You're not staying for more fun?
Sure, sure.
So since the last council meeting, the council members have had an opportunity to put in their suggestions for what they wanted or what they felt was sorry, there we go. So since the last council meeting, council members have been putting in a suggested amount to the nonprofits. There was 37 nonprofits that applied for the ARPA money. As you put those in that file and you had access to all of the applications, their financial information, Micah and I reviewed those suggestions, and as we found that there was 3 or more council members suggested an award, we pulled those out, and 8 nonprofit organizations were identified to receive some funding from the $515,000.
That's why we didn't use all the 515 then, right? 'Cause
Correct.
we only took where there were 3 unanimous.
Right.
Okay, then
There
we-
was 3, and we took an average of that. And that's just a starting point. It's just so you have kind of a baseline, something to start with. So this file, it's a little small there. Let me see if I can enlarge it. Oh. Oh. There we go. If I can find my. Okay. So this is the file that we came up with, and as Councilmember Gunnell said, you haven't allotted for all of the 515,000. So there's a remaining balance of 69,500, and this is in the media packet. This page is in the media packet showing this information. And again, this is just a suggested amount, a starting point, if you will. Then there's another tab. This is also in the media packet, and that gives all of the information of everybody who applied with their organization, the nonprofit, what they were suggesting or asking for, and the requested amount.
That's just page 2 and 3.
Yeah. And again, this is just a starting point. You do have access to all of the applications and the file that's in the council members' packet that shows the financials of each of the nonprofits. So the 515 is in the budget that you're going to be discussing later. If there's any deviation from that amount, that would need to be amended. Is there any questions?
What's the deadline on? Is there?
Well, there's no deadline other than the funds need to be obligated by December 31st of 2024 and expended by December 31st of 2026.
Well, the decision that you make about these ARPA funds, if it's different than sending 550,000, we need to amend.
Right.
The budget
The
override.
Budget.
So
Yeah,
there's kind of a deadline, but you can move it.
right.
I think those of us who participated all tried to spend the 515, right?
Mhm.
So it's just coming up with the remaining 69.5 that people, 2 or 1 or whatever, have voted for.
Mhm.
'Cause I don't see going above 515.
No, but it'd be nice to allocate that other 69,000 tonight if we could.
Mhm.
Okay. With that in mind, I believe we are, let me see. We don't have that back over here on initial proposals,
Yeah, it's not on initial proposals.
so we can go ahead and talk about that right now if you would like. Is there any additions or changes or from what was put together here? I I know there's still a couple of them. I was a little worried about the ones that had also received RAPS money. And, you know, and then they're getting another chunk from this. I was a little worried about creating all of a sudden what they'll be start asking and how they'll start doing things even with the RAPS money. But, any additions, deletions?
I'm happy with all of them. My vote was to give the full 160 to the Sunshine Terrace, but I don't know how everyone feels about that.
I was there also.
I think it was 13.
I would be too.
So give them that additional 24,000.
So move that up to 160,000.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be happy with that.
Right, I was just gonna put it in there.
Do that with the motion.
And I know CAPS could really use every dollar they can get.
Do you want to do it all in one motion, or should we do it as we go?
Okay, so, let me pull up the calculator.
That leaves 54,500.
Okay, you beat me to it.
Okay.
Wait, nope, I did it wrong.
45,000.
I mixed up my 5 and my 4.
45,000.
45,000.
Remaining if you allocate the rest to fulfill the Sunshine Terrace.
Okay.
And I'd support giving it to council too.
I'm fine with that.
The remaining?
I'm good with those two.
Or split it between that and Little Lambs. I think I had originally given Little Lambs a
See,
little more.
Little Lamb's got a big chunk of RAPS.
Did they get wraps or cares?
Oh, they got some RAPS money.
If I remember right, it would have been CARES, wraps.
Was
They
it
wouldn't,
CARES? I thought-
they wouldn't qualify for wraps and restaurant, Little Lambs. I can double check on that.
Okay.
It was CARES
okay.
Act.
Okay.
Well, that being the case, propose something.
Trying to jump between two different
I know.
documents.
Well, I make a motion, we do the 24,000, move Sunshine Terrace up. That leaves the 45. We moved 5 or 10 of that to Little Lambs and the rest to CAPSA. That's a start.
5 or 10?
Help me decide.
We gave them everything they requested. Oh, no, that's Daughters of Utah Pioneers. Little Lambs.
Well, the biggest gap is from what they requested is caps.
Totally.
And the veterans.
So you're proposing 5?
Okay.
Give the 5 to Little Lambs and then the rest to CAPSA.
So bring Little Lambs up to
Okay, can I go for
23.
that?
Is that a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded, that we approve these nonprofit ARPA awards, which will take us to the 515,000.
Mr. Chair, I will recuse myself from the vote. I am related to executive director of one of these, so I will not be voting.
Okay. You want to state which ones?
I'll let you guess.
Probably
No.
Little Lambs.
No, Crick.
Oh. Okay. All those, then, without your vote, that'll be fine. All those in favor of this motion that we award these ARPA funds to the nonprofits as such, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay.
Okay.
So this in no way will then change the budget then, will it? We're within the 515, everything's fine there. Okay. Okay, let's go on to economic opportunity, the board recommendations, advisory board. Go ahead, Sean.
Well, good evening, council, and thank you for the opportunity to visit with you again this evening. Micah, will this just automatically switch over when you have a moment, please? Thank you. All right, Sean Milne, Bear River Association of Governments. Thank you. So the council will likely recall that at your last meeting, I presented to you the annual County Economic Opportunity Advisory Board, or CEO Advisory Board's recommendations for your consideration. And you'd put forth that you wanted to consider something for rural. Oh, there we go. It's just a little lag there. And so this was the presentation that I gave you last time for those recommendations and the not to exceed dollar amounts. And with your suggestion that we include something for ag. And I want to give credit where credit's due. I've got two proposals for you. One is more immediate and comes out of this very grant. And the other one would be something for the governing board of Bragg to consider, and a second part grant. The first is an ag-related water optimization grant. When I said I want to give credit where credit's due, Councilwoman Sandy Goodlander came up with the idea that, as you'd likely know, as most of us do that are involved in local government in northern Utah these days and anything ag, the state is incentivizing ag producers to be more efficient with their water use. And so they've created some state grants. What's proposed here is a roughly 18% of that 40,000 non-allocated to the Bragg formula from, sorry about this, don't know why we're having some of these technological issues this evening, but from this you see that the non-Bragg allocation, the remainder, what's being proposed is 18% be allocated as you'd suggested at the last meeting towards these ag-related water optimization grants. We don't have all the details ironed out at this particular time, but for farmers and ranchers, anybody that's an ag-related water user, any out-of-pocket costs, that this might be thought of as a matching grant that could help subsidize those application costs or anything that they would have to come up with in order to apply for those state water optimization grants. That's the first part, and that's the part that I'm going to seek for your vote tonight. But I'm also kind of asking for your vote and direction, even amongst yourselves. As you likely know, you have 5 members on the governing board of Bragg, the Bear River Association of Governments, and the 2 from the council are Councilwoman Sandy Goodlander and Carl Ward, Councilman Carl Ward. And so there's a governing board meeting tomorrow. I can tell you, since our last meeting together, I've presented a couple of times to the Box Elder County Commission, and they love this idea too. So Councilman Gunnell, you were the impetus for making us pause on our last meeting, and they concur with you. They love the idea of anything that could be used to help ag. Ag is obviously very important to the 3 counties in this Bear River watershed area. And so what's envisioned here, which you may or may not know from your peer group, the 6-county AOG, which creatively named includes 6 counties in the middle of the state, has envisioned an agri-park that is zoned to specifically expedite ag users along the I-15 corridor, since they too are very dependent upon ag for their economy. So this is kind of a bifurcated approach to address your suggestion, Councilman. So moving right along, the suggestion is this. I know that Councilwoman Sandy Goodlander had mentioned that she didn't, feel comfortable proposing that any of these really get modified, but you'll see I've suggested this take from a couple of them. And the reason for the 5,000 from the Logan Cache Airport strategy is because since our last meeting, you see there that asterisk at the bottom, I had applied a month or 2 ago for a couple of grants, one on behalf of Box Elder and one on behalf of this county for EDC Utah for some local community grants. And I'd received a $4,500 award for the very activity of that feasibility study for the airport. So it became pretty obvious I could reduce this so that the total aggregate would not exceed that original 20 grand. And then I've suggested backing away 2,500 from the rural community SWAT, or that matrix study, creating a differential of 7,500, which I'm now proposing to utilize this way in the agri-based water optimization grants that I can work out further with your direction and the advisory board, and or with your council input on how we could utilize those optimization grants to help farmers, apply for those funds through the state. Still not to exceed the $200,000 ask. So that is what is before you tonight, and I welcome any questions or comments.
First round of that water optimization has already occurred.
Okay?
17 projects were awarded in this area, which is really good.
Yeah.
There is the second round that's coming up, but they're having to change some things. That second round you could probably use that little bit of extra, maybe payment on expertise for some engineering, something.
Okay.
Because of how they're changing it for the second round.
Well, that's fantastic. I love hearing that. Thank you for telling us how there's a practical way that we could put this to beneficial use. Pun there for the water. But I know that Councilman Hurd is also on the phone, and he and I serendipitously were in attendance at the Bear River Watershed Council meeting that was had last week. And this couldn't have seemed more serendipitous, this idea that we're proposing here. So I do want to give huge kudos to Councilman Gunnell for this suggestion, and invite Councilman Hurd if he wants to add anything to how he thinks this could be utilized through the kind of conversation that happened at the Watershed Council.
Okay.
Yeah, I can just echo, Sean, that it's right along the scope of helping to address the overall debate going on with the state for watershed management. So it was good information and very timely, as you mentioned.
Thank you.
One other thing, Sean, that when you and I spoke, 2 of those awards say not to exceed a certain amount of money. And then we talked about maybe putting a provision in there that anything that is not utilized for that purpose automatically shifts to the agri-based water optimization. Right? Is that?
Yeah, that's correct. We had spoken of that, and if the council would like to proceed that direction, then say the satellite industry recruitment that we've envisioned. We only need to utilize 3,500. We have an extra 1,500 that we could allocate if that were to be the motion and the way to proceed.
That was kind of a thought that I had, that if there's any leftovers for those not to exceed amounts, that just they automatically shift into that rather than having an amount out there that isn't encumbered, or if we can allocate that, then right from the beginning it sets that up to work more
So along
smoothly.
that line, chase down Bragg and the amount that's there as to what's really gonna be done on that 161. Know what I mean? Give me some more ideas on what Bragg's gonna do with that, or how that's gonna go.
It's usually the departmental costs. You're talking my salary, benefits, travel expenses, office equipment, administrative overhead that, like HR takes to do their functions, and reams of paper and things of that nature, professional development. So for example, part of that professional development line item, I had applied for that box elder grant that I told you about in order to participate in some IEDC, some International Economic Development Council certification, a trend that the state would like most of us to move towards. Even GOEO doesn't have folks with that kind of certification, and they're wanting to see a movement for those of us in this professional space to get that kind of certification. So all of those kind of costs would come out of that allocation.
Any other comments, questions,
Do you see
motions?
this grant being available for future years, or what's the likelihood of renewal? And
I appreciate that question, and it keeps me awake at night since I'm grant funded. Mrs. Milne too. The short answer is yes. Carl Albrecht is one of the chief sponsors of SB 95, as is our very own Senator Scott Sandell. And the whole vision is to incentivize economic development in the rural areas outside of those 5 urban-like metropolitan counties of Salt Lake, Utah, Weber Davis, and Washington. There's not talk that I'm aware of. It would catch my ear if there was talk of this possibly going away. Every year there seems to be a few tweaks to make sure that the ROI is there. This year the application process is a bit more robust. The reporting process definitely was. They wanted to make sure for the first time in 3 years, not just how you spent the money, but how did you spend the money that's already spent, what's encumbered but unspent, and what's unspent and unencumbered. So every year they further ask for more details, which I think is great. I mean, I'm all for being held accountable, and my peer group seems to be the same. So I don't hear talk, Councilman, that it's going away, but I wouldn't be surprised if it continues to get modified. I know that they love to see these go towards projects. They want to make sure that they go towards more one-time costs than ongoing costs. So,
Okay,
I'd make a motion that we accept and approve the detail that's been presented for the rural county grant
With,
with also the provision that any extras go towards the agri-based water optimization.
I'd second that.
moved and seconded, we accept this rural county grant request with any excess being diverted to agri-based water optimization grants. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes.
excellent, thank you, council. And then just that second part, this will be before the Bragg Governing Board at a upcoming meeting. Any thoughts as to that? Because the governing board doesn't meet as frequently as the county council or commissions do within the area, as to an application for working together for an agri-park. Just any first blush impressions you might have?
well, you mentioned this, that it's not for recurring expenses, it's like one time is what they thought about?
Yeah, that's their preference. It can be used either way. It's very flexible that way, but they prefer that it go towards one-time costs.
As I brought up agricultural, I know there are some agricultural companies who have gifted generously back to the community, and I'd like to see even some advertising of the Cache County agricultural products and stuff that's going on and things like that.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Okay, let's go to 9A. Ordinance 2023-38. We have seen this before. And there's been some changes since.
Yes. So the county saw this about a month, or just over a month ago. And there is some question about what to do with it moving forward. The Planning Commission recommended denial. However, the council, I believe, felt like the applicant's request to build an additional home wasn't unreasonable, and so they continued it for a month to give the applicant time to do some surveying on the property, and especially with the new updated code for our, A10, that it might potentially provide an additional lot or additional building lot on the total acreage without having to do the zone change. So we've been working with the applicant. The applicant has hired a surveyor, and we're currently working with them. We haven't come to a conclusion yet about that. And the applicant's here, but and is requested that we continue it again so that we could have more time for the
That'll work
surveyor
for
to do
you?
the work.
The continuance? Yes. Okay. Well, is that okay with everybody?
I'm just
Fine,
saying,
but
as we chase this, I don't want to open up parameters that I say crud down the road, that we created an issue. So I'm willing to table this, but I don't want to get into a scenario where okay, now we've opened another thing of, because I'm really watching this R40 and everything else here and the A10, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine with continuing it.
motion to continue it for what, 30 days?
Okay. Yep, 30 days would be great.
Boy, have I heard that before.
We go up to 60, that way he doesn't have to come back or whatever.
Up to 60, let's do that.
Okay, I'd make
Is
a
that okay
motion
with you?
that we continue,
Okay, Carl,
let's see, ordinance 2023-28
we're up to 60
for up to
days.
60 days.
Moving second that we continue, that we continue with ordinance 2023 and give them up to 60 days, 2023-28 up to 60 days. Is there any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion passes. Anyway, is there anyone that's not? I think that was unanimous, so let's go ahead and we'll give you another 60 days to get that worked out with all the new changes within that A10 ordinance things. That'll work out terrific. Let's go to A, initial proposal, let's say approval for that lease John C. Bailey, this should take very long, right?
Well, I will suspend the rules and
We're hurrying, okay?
make a motion that we approve the lease for the John C. Bailey building to the Bear River Health Department.
Second.
We've seconded it. We approve the proposed lease for the John C. Bailey building to the Bear River Health Department. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all will proceed to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
It's unanimous and passes. How about if we wait on B and let's go to C real quick? Do we have anything on that decision on truth and taxation notice? Who was going to share that? Was that Craig? Could you? I think we have to have some sort of approval. You're going to share. We need to have that so we get the information out probably. I've heard this before, so go ahead.
You wrote it, right? It's got the Cache County Council, so in past, we've, again, we need to make sure that we have your permission and approval. We're putting your words, but it says Cache County is not proposing a tax increase for 2024. Continued efforts to balance and finalize the budget are ongoing. As discussed in the 9/26/23 council meeting, a combination of fund balance and spending cuts will be used to balance the 2024 budget. Signed by Cache County Council.
I think that's, well, is there anyone that wants to raise taxes?
Nope.
Well, thought I'd ask.
Keep using that fund balance.
Okay.
So we'll keep with that wording. Additionally, just so the county council knows, I'm using space on the back of each notice to also talk about tax relief and programs that by the state allow our constituents to apply. And so we're using the second page to also advertise for the required truth and taxation notice of cemetery district that we have to provide for. And so we're using that, but just for your information, we're optimizing every square inch with information to try to help.
Well, I appreciate that because we know how expensive that can get. That can really eat a lot of dollars.
Thank you.
So thanks for putting that out.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, would it be appropriate to skip to letter F?
To letter F? Yes.
That'd be okay while
Yeah.
we have so many
And we'll come
proponents here
back
for
to
another-
B and E. They're pretty simple. So let's go ahead. Resolution 2023-16 and,
Do you want to vote on C?
oh, did we? No, do we need to vote on that? I think we,
We'll just all give you a thumbs up.
I think we give him a thumbs up to go ahead with it. I thought in the past, we've just said, yes, go ahead with it. We don't have to have an official on that one. So, resolution 2023-16. We'd like to consenting to the Logan RDA that's being proposed. So go ahead.
Just one moment here while I get hooked up. There we go. Council, it's great to be with you again. We were here, I lose track of time, but it seems like a month or two ago, visiting with you about the 1400 North Main Community Reinvestment Project area. And I'm here with Mayor Holly Dange, Kimber Housley with the city's legal department, and we have the developer of the Cache Valley Marketplace project that we've talked about before that I'll introduce a little bit later in my preliminary comments, which I'll keep fairly brief. We've covered most of the information in the past, particularly with the budget. So with the project area plan now being approved by Logan City and adopted by the city's redevelopment agency, and with the budget being adopted and approved by the city's redevelopment agency, and keep in mind that that budget was consented to by all three taxing entities, Logan City, Cache County, and the Logan City School District. So with those steps having been all completed, the last item remaining is really to make this project area operational, which means it needs to be funded. To this point, although we looked at the budget in great detail, you know, the various line items. What did not happen, and is what's in front of you tonight with the interlocal agreement, is to consider contributing Cache County's portion of the tax increment to the redevelopment agency that's associated with this particular project area for a 20-year period. And as you saw in the budget before, that amount has a cap of $1,844,700. It's been budgeted, projected over 20 years. Should that amount be paid in full up to that cap amount in years 16, 17, 18, or whatever, then that revenue ceases to go to the redevelopment agency and then returns to Cache County. So hopefully, if there's questions on that cap, just let me know. Tax increment, a lot of questions come up on, you know, what does that term mean? Tonight, I put it in mathematical terms. And if, as you see on the screen there, if you take the taxable value, the total taxable value, so that means within that boundaried area that you saw before, whoops, going the wrong way, within that red boundaried area, which is the Cache Valley Mall and some acreage that's south of there, and keep in mind you take into account all real estate, so all real property and personal property on those particular parcels. You take the total sum of that and you subtract from that what is called the base year value. And that was shown previously in the budget. That figure's about just shy of $48 million. So in any future year during this 20-year time horizon, the Cache County Auditor's Office, the Assessor's Office will look at the total taxable value, subtract out that base year value, and that nets out at what is termed the marginal value. And then you apply Cache County's tax rate to that amount, and that yields what is called tax increments. So that would be the revenue generated off of the new growth, essentially, within this project area that instead of going to Cache County during this budgeted time horizon, or budgeted term of 20 years, would go to the redevelopment agency until such time as that cap is hit. And the purpose of that, obviously, is to realize the objectives of the project area plan, which is various development scenarios that will increase the tax base, which will benefit all three taxing entities. So also, within that interlocal agreement, there is an authorization or consent that you would give to the RDA, allowing the RDA to use 5% of that total tax increment for administrative purposes to manage and administer the project area for that 20-year period. Additionally, 10% would be authorized by you for the RDA to use for housing, and that's also dictated by Utah code. So that money would be reinvested into housing.
And now,
go ahead.
Housing in general or affordable housing?
Thank you. Affordable housing. Yep. So with my preliminary comments, that's all I have. I'm happy to take any questions you might have, but let me at the same time just introduce the developer of the proposed Cache Valley Marketplace. The companies, or the real estate company, is Woodsonia Real Estate, based out of Nebraska. Drew Snyder, their president, is here with us tonight, along with Mitch Holan, Director of Development. So they will now come up and give you an overview of the project. Although that's been discussed, you know, in different forms, we thought it'd be helpful for the council and the public just to see an overview of what that project will look like, and then we're happy, as I said, to take any questions.
We have to run our own show, Kirk.
I can advance the slides for you.
I mean, we can do it.
Yeah, you do.
We're capable, as long as you trust us with your laptop.
I too.
Okay.
This first slide's, I'm going to have to shrink it once you get to slide 2, or it won't be visible.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, you want to run? Okay. Okay. Yeah, we appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. As Kirk mentioned, Drew Snyder, president of Woodsonia Real Estate. That's my business partner, Mitch Holan.
And first off, we just want to thank the city. City of Logan's been fantastic. I know we're here talking to the county, but, and really all the taxing entities at this point. It's a big project, and we've been working on this for about a year. Our company, as Kirk mentioned, is Nebraska-based. We do projects across the United States. This will be our 4th mall redevelopment. So, and we just left the school board meeting, and so a little bit repetitive, but the enclosed mall business is basically a broken business model. As most people realize across the United States, there's enclosed malls in nearly all significant communities of any size, Logan being one. The malls, and I should know the exact date, I think was built in the 70s or 80s. At this point, all the anchor stores are vacant, and then all the smaller retail spaces, I think, are roughly 50 to 60% vacant.
It was the 70s.
70s, okay.
I watched it get built.
Okay, yeah. So it's been there for a long time.
And they were good times, by the way.
There was some good times. That's right. So, but this is, we feel fortunate. We work on a lot of mall projects where we're just fortunate in the fact that we have an anchor retailer that's very interested and wants to move forward with this project, which allowed us to really build a plan, a business plan, around how to redevelop this property. And so we are currently under contract to purchase everything that's colorized on this plan. And so to kind of walk you through it, and I know it's kind of hard to see the lot numbers, but the big red box, it's a new to market retailer that hopefully we'll be able to announce in the coming months, but everyone will be very familiar with them. Very, very successful company. And then our company builds residential housing, and so there'll be roughly 350 residential housing units, and those are the buildings identified in yellow. You can kind of see on the plan, so predominantly on the east, and then 2 buildings on the south. And then if you can see the lot number, and this would be directly south of the red box or the 150,000 square foot store, we're proposing a hotel with ground floor retail in that space. It's identified on the plan as lot 3, if you can see that. So this plan would include a full demolition of the existing mall structure. We would be removing all the kind of antiquated parking. People don't realize these parking facilities that were built 50 years ago are not up to today's standards from a stormwater perspective and things of that nature. So all this would get torn out, all the utilities, infrastructure completely redone, rebuilt. So this entire project would be over a $200 million investment and would be a major overhaul of the mall property. So we wanted to stick with the Cache Valley name. We branded it Cache Valley Marketplace is the name of the redevelopment project. And with the taxing entity's approval, we would like to get this project started second quarter of next year. As I mentioned, we've been underway with this for about a year. Don't know how many meetings we've had, but I've lost track. It's quite a few. And so we're just kind of in the final stages and really here tonight to ask for the county's approval for the use of tax increment financing and really being an investment partner in this project with us. Without the use of a public-private partnership, this project wouldn't happen, and that's been the case for all the malls that we've redeveloped and been a part of, and really no different with Cache Valley. So I'm happy to open up any questions or comments on the site plan. There's some renderings. There's quite a few, so we can kind of buzz through these. One thing I will mention on the plan is the road in green. That will be a public access easement that will stretch east and west across the site. I don't know if you want to go back up. I just want to mention that. That's why that's identified in green, just so there'll be an east-west thoroughfare kind of through the middle of the property. But with that, yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions on the site plan. And we'll run through the renderings, and feel free to stop me if you have specific questions. But we'll take you through a few of the renderings of the project. Can everybody see those okay? We'll zoom in here a little bit. Okay, so this would be looking, so that the top slide, if I just page down here, okay. Top slide would be looking, this out. There we go. That would be looking to the east, so that would be the west elevation of the anchor store. And then you can see the hotel building, the mixed-use hotel building off to the south there, as you would be looking to the east. This would be a close-up of the multifamily, one of the multifamily buildings. This is just another angle of the multifamily building, some of the architectural, there's some architectural features, outdoor balconies, things of that nature that we've incorporated into the project. We had extensive discussions with the city, with the planning commission and the city council on the amount of pedestrian, resident, green space areas. So of course we wanted to incorporate pickleball. Everybody loves pickleball. There's a dog park there on the right-hand side. So you can see those on the plan. These are just the building massings. So these would be the buildings on the east. We don't know why our design guy put a forest to the east of that. That forest will not be there. So we just want to clarify that. Somebody caught that in our last meeting, and so we said, no, that's not right. This is just another close-up of the some of the resident areas. Again, that's a big focal point for us. We want to make this as interactive as possible and create, great functional spaces for people in the residential portion of the project to utilize. So a lot of these next slides just kind of illustrate that. And again, feel free to stop me if you would like.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So you worked with the Logan City Planning Commission, like on the parking requirements for that many apartments? Okay.
We did.
I trust them. I just wanted to
Yes.
make sure that, because that's always such a big deal.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
There'll be a playground. I don't know why this slide, I apologize, is a little bit smaller, but you can kind of see that. We'll incorporate a playground into the residential area. There's a swimming pool in between the two buildings on the east. Just outdoor plaza areas. I think we end with the
How much open space will be included?
We have a very detailed exhibit that we can send to you. We have gone through this extensively. I don't think we have it in, but we're exceeding what was required, I believe,
There's
significantly.
two different requirements. There's an open space requirement and then a landscaping requirement. Both of those, Sandy, the big challenge we had was balancing the amount of parking we wanted to have while still making this not just one large parking field. So we are exceeding both, well, all three requirements of parking per unit. I think we're about 20% higher. And then we are exceeding the green space and landscaping requirements for this too.
So when you come into a county or somebody like this, and you guys said that you build the apartments, how much of this construction is going to be done by local contractors? How much do you bring in a whole group, or how does this work on this?
We're not a general contractor, so typically when we're doing projects all throughout the United States now, typically we work with a local GC. Right now we are working with a local GC. For areas like Logan, you're kind of restricted in who you're going to use for a stub standpoint, so our intent is to use local, resources on this project.
Yeah, our intent is, Mitch alluded to, is always to try to use local. This is a large housing project. We can't find a suitable plumber, for instance, and I'm just using that as a hypothetical scenario. We may need to go to Salt Lake or something like that, but typically, yeah, we try to find as many local folks as we can to handle a project of this size. Any other questions that we can help answer?
Based on the housing, can you give us a number of what we would expect family-wise number there to be? I mean, you building 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, what are you targeting for the family size?
I don't know if I can tell you exactly what we're targeting family size. we did a full-blown market study. I apologize, I don't have that unit breakdown. We can get it to you. But it'll be a mix of studios, 1s, 2s, and 3 beds. So it'll be pretty diverse as far as housing plans. So I think whether someone's single, married with kids, we're gonna be able to accommodate any lifestyle that you're in, depending on where you're at.
All of those to be rented, or will they buy to own?
They're all rented, yes. Yes, it'll all be a for rent product.
And you plan to retain ownership for the 20 years?
We would retain ownership of the multifamily.
What's the blue on the map?
This?
Yeah.
We're working through a land swap with the parcel owner there in the, I think it's southeast corner. So as we work through that public access easement that's going to run through the middle of the site, we needed to do that. We've got a great relationship with them, and we're actually kind of working with them on a few other things tenant-wise. But those 2 blue areas there show the land that we're going to swap with him and the land he's swapping with us.
Yeah, if you go over there today, his parcel goes pretty far to the north. So this little north piece gets swapped, and then he's picking up a piece on the west. So those are all the fun little details you get to do with these projects. Plus, there's a swap up here with Texas Roadhouse, some of their parking and things like that. So that's where some of these developed sites, these mall sites, they're just a little bit more complicated than a greenfield site or something like that, kind of a blank slate. So.
Other
What do
Go
you
ahead.
think the traffic impact's gonna be? As I sit out there at some intersections, I get to watch 4 light changes before I go anywhere, so.
The mall was developed originally, the traffic study isn't finalized, but it's in draft form. And according to the traffic engineer, there's minimal traffic improvements. That's the nice thing with these mall sites. Originally in their heyday, they're some of the largest traffic generating sites in a community. So in theory, state highways, city streets, things of that nature should be able to handle increased traffic. Obviously, the site at this point is way underutilized based on what it was originally designed and developed for. So, but our draft, I want to be cautious because the finalized traffic study isn't done yet, but the draft form came back and there was a light proposed down here at 200 and
Right side of the green. Where the pedestrian access easement hits 200.
South of that. Yeah, 1250 right there.
You're talking right here.
You got it.
Correct.
Yeah. Sorry, you threw me through a loop there. Yeah, down at this intersection. Other than that, and then obviously everything will go to UDOT. There could be further changes that come down from the state, but right now that's what the traffic study came back with.
I have a question or comment, I guess, related to that. Related to 200 East, right now there's an ongoing project to widen portions of 200 East and install improvements at the intersection of 200 East and 1400 North. I'm just curious if that widening is proposed to continue south from that current project. I believe the southern extent of that project is the southern boundary of Culver's. So I'm just wondering, with all of this going on, if there's going to be additional dedication of right-of-way along 200 East to allow for widening to continue south from that current project?
That's what we're waiting for the traffic study.
So potentially based on that?
Our design, we probably should have mentioned this, our design review permit is conditioned on meeting all the requirements of the traffic study. So that's ordered by the city. Whatever those results come, we're responsible for meeting them. But to answer your question, we haven't been alluded to that yet.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions?
I have a question for Kirk, but I don't have any more questions for you.
You're done with us, we can sit down.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah,
Okay,
thank you for your
thanks.
consideration.
Don't go too far, though.
Okay.
Go ahead, Sandy.
Okay, Kirk and I already spoke this week because my concern was for the tax revenue that that we have a base value that we're gonna keep at that same value, which generates a certain amount of tax for the county. But if the rate goes up, then I wondered who would capture that increase in revenue. And I thought it should be us, but Kirk assured me that there's a cap of 1.8 million. So it goes towards that. Once we get to that 1.8 million, then it comes back to us. So it does benefit us. Like, I feel more comfortable with that. But here's the question I have. Will you go back to the original slide that showed the red, the area, the whole,
Oh, the map?
Oh, the RDA area?
the whole RDA area?
That includes the municipal?
That's what I want to know. So the part that goes down, who owns that? The development company is not purchasing that, correct?
That's correct.
So we are agreeing as a county, though, to forego, that land is all included in that $48 million value, correct?
It is.
So we're using that land we're going to forego any tax increment increases on that land and give it to the developer, even though there's someone else who owns it. Like potentially somebody could join in the RDA and want to do some development there, but for right now, there is the homeowner or property owner, whoever owns that, is going to get, their tax increase would go to the developers of the mall, correct?
The developer.
Am I making sense? Like,
That's a good question. The developer's incentives will only pertain to their redevelopment project and not to these other parcels that lie south of the Cache Valley Mall area. However, you made the point, and you're correct, that those southern parcels are part of the project area. So tax increment over the 20-year time horizon is budgeted to go to the redevelopment agency. That amount is limited. I don't have the percentage top of my head, but it's say 10-15% of the total tax increment. I could pull out the budget and look at that more closely, but the city owns 2 acres of that section down as you get closer towards 1000 North, the middle school. The mayor's talked about potentially converting that or developing a park at some future time when we have funding. The rest is privately held. Any development possibilities on that section is purely speculative at this point. However, we felt like it was important to include with the mall project, as we would expect that with the mall project hopefully going forward, that it's going to spring some opportunity to really do something nice in that undeveloped area. Well, there's some development. You have some older fourplexes in that area. There's a couple other buildings in there, so that is in the budget, but it's a very minor portion of the total $13 million cap.
But I guess I don't understand, because what if that property owner then wanted to do a development of their own? Their portion of the tax that we have given up is going to the mall development. There's no room for them to get a benefit for developing their land. Like, it's in the project area, but.
There's roughly, I mean, without diving into the details of the budget, there's about $600,000 to $1 million of room under that cap that could be used to incentivize projects on that southern half of the project area. So not all of the monies you see in the budget will go to the developer of the Cache Valley Mall.
Each of those landowners, are they required to basically also jump in on this RDA? Approve?
They don't have to, no.
Can they just be like blanketed?
Kimber Hauser, I just wanted to clarify one thing, Sandy. The developer only gets increment that they generate. So anything that's done on another parcel, they will not be entitled to. It's only what they actually generate as part of their development. And then the other property owners, if they decide to develop and work in agreement with the city, would be based on their development only.
But the value of their property is included in that 48 million that we are agreeing to keep at a steady level, right?
Correct, but they're just paying their same property tax, regardless of what the mall's happening there. They're just paying their property tax. How it's distributed changes based on the center local agreement but nothing changes for that or that property owner unless they decide to do some type of redevelopment project and come to the city and say, here's what I'd like to do, is there any incentive? And then we may give them some kind of incentive, but again, it would only be based on what they develop. We're not giving from one property owner to another.
It just seems to me like, I don't understand why you included that in the $48 million valuation.
Yeah, it's a simple answer. There's a simple answer, and it's because it's such a onerous process to create one of these. We figured while we're here and we've got this big hole hasn't been developed, we might as well include it in case the property owners want to take advantage of it. If they choose not to, there's no harm. But if they wanted to and we didn't include it, there would be no money to offer them. And so the idea is to try to clean up that area. I know it's important to the school district because it's right across from the middle school. And nothing wrong with those fourplexes. I mean, they serve a valuable need, but they're 50, 60 years old. There's an opportunity maybe to combine some parcels there and maybe do something a little more intensive.
So if they wanted to develop that, then they could receive some of that taxes?
Potentially. They'd have to come to the city and it'd have to be a worthy project, but yeah, nothing that's being generated on that non-mall site is going to be given to the mall.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure I understood that because it was all included in one parcel of the RDA.
So, if I understand this correctly, each taxing entity can negotiate the terms independent of each other. The school district could come in and say 20 years, et cetera, and come to terms. Logan City could do it, and Cache County. It doesn't have to be like a one package that encompasses all of the entities together, correct?
That's correct. But I'll add to that, as the developer mentioned, I think you mentioned it, we've been meeting with them for about a year and looked at both their project costs as well as, the projected tax increment that will spin off of this project, and really the deficit in their project pro forma. So those numbers that they need to go forward with the project are known, and so we've got that gap calculated, which is what you saw in the budget before. And then, of course, the school district has about 74% of that property tax burden, the county about 14%, and what does that leave the city? About 12%, yeah.
Okay.
I want to mention one thing too. I don't know if this got brought up. It got brought up in our last meeting. There's a cap based on valuation assumptions. Obviously, if the valuation assumptions are higher, the repayment period could be quicker. So right now, there's a cap. There's a 20-year period. But again, that's based on valuation assumptions that we worked on with the city. If those valuation assumptions go higher, the repayment would happen quicker, which would be beneficial for everyone, but we just don't know until the project is built and valued, so.
If they're lower, then we still get tied to that 20 years though, right?
Yeah, I mean, we really lose it. I mean, at that point, we're really the ones at risk, right? Because we're asking for an investment from the county to invest. We're going to keep the base the same, but then anything that the project generates, the increment, we're asking to capture that. If it's lower and it just doesn't get repaid in 20-year period, then we just don't get the money. Correct.
Other questions? Good questions.
One quick question. You've
ahead.
already presented this to the school district tonight. Yeah. And do you know what their response was, or are they taking it under advisement?
We left after we presented, so there was some discussion that we didn't hear, so we're uncertain at this point whether they'll vote tonight or defer a vote till their next meeting.
Okay.
I know it's a lot to digest, but any more questions or motions or?
What kind of motion are you looking for tonight?
That's up, hey, this is your.
I will say that we just got this a couple of days ago. We've only had it for a few days, the actual interlocal agreement. And auditor's office is looking over that to like, because they would be the ones that set it up for us as a taxing entity for the county. I would like to hear from them, and maybe put this off for 2 more weeks and let them get back to us and see, do they see any red flags? Or there's something that they can explain to us that we maybe don't understand? And just have that, I'd like to hear from them. Because they're studying it right now. They just only had it for a few days too, the actual agreement. So that would be my recommendation, is that we suspend this for 2 weeks.
I like that agreement, or that suggestion.
So is that a motion?
I would make that a motion.
Then which would be in October 10th, I believe, is our next meeting.
Yeah, and take a final vote on October 10th.
So it's moved and seconded that we table this until October 10th. That's a lot to digest, so that'll be good. Any other discussion on that?
Ask Mark what he thinks.
Mark, what do you think?
I'm ready to vote in favor.
Okay. Of
In
which?
favor of October 10th or in favor of the whole thing?
Favor of October 10th.
Oh, there you
Of
go.
the pending motion.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, well then we'll bring it back up and we'll kind of just gather our information that we need and have a decision for October 10th. Will that work for you? Yeah. That'll work, that's great.
Thanks for being kind and moving stuff on the agenda.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, no, that worked out good. So, thanks for your patience and waiting. Let's, if we could, jump back to, real quick, 10E. And anyone got an explanation on that? Did we change Christmas?
Yeah, I read all over that.
I know, county employees. Yeah. 2 days after Christmas.
We have that. We don't have quite that much, do we? That's good. I'm glad we don't.
Government jobs.
There's actually 2 changes here.
Can only be.
Is it your birthday?
That's more than 3 days.
There's actually 2 changes here. Both of these are
We have to be open every day the 5th.
minor.
Like, ever. Yeah, in a row, 3 consecutive days in a row.
So last year, when the council passed the 2023 schedule for council meetings, a mistake was made for the month of November. And on this, for the new council members, this is passed every year at the end of the year, the schedule of the next year's council meetings. And on that, the one last year, on accident, the 1st and 3rd Tuesdays of November were listed. So this is just amending the 2nd and 4th as it should be. The second change is related to the holiday schedule. County policy is that when Christmas falls on a Monday, then the Monday and Tuesday are the holidays taken off, whereas typically Christmas Eve and Christmas. But this year, Christmas is on a Monday, so we needed to, again, amend this schedule just to reflect that Monday and Tuesday, 25th and 26th, will be the.
They got
county
Christmas down to December
So is the
26th.
22nd a holiday also for Christmas? This is observed Christmas Eve?
That needs to come off now.
Yeah, is that, see, it looks like there's 3 holidays there, Friday, Monday, and Tuesday.
See, there's 5 days off.
I believe if it falls, depending on where it falls on the weekend, it's a Friday or a Monday. So if this, under state law, the state's getting.
So,
A Friday and Tuesday?
So-
or just
But
Friday?
Christmas, it's just,
so what you're saying, Dane, is that state law requires us to take the 22nd off. County policy requires us to take the Tuesday off.
I believe so.
Normally, if it's on a Sunday, it makes it Monday, but Monday's already a holiday.
Monday's already a
So you
holiday.
get Friday and Monday off?
And Tuesday.
And Tuesday.
And Tuesday.
It's not in their own occupation.
And I didn't know about this, but I know that that's something I need to look more into. I don't want to make county employees mad by taking a day.
Is that all
away.
government? Because there's a banking rule, you don't close 3 days.
Yeah, we can't close 3 days, but that's government, that's the Fed.
Because people don't want to like run on the bank.
Yeah.
because they are closed.
I don't know, I'm sticking to the 1st and 3rd in November, heck with it. So I'll come here to my meeting owned by myself.
So can we not vote on this until we get more information? Is that what you're saying?
Okay,
If you want to
so,
give extra days to the county employees, I'm not one to stand.
I
by
think
that.
we should wait and see. Let's check out.
Seems
the
heavy,
statutes.
3 days for
3 days.
Christmas.
Just leave it
But
on,
just because
let's leave
Christmas
it
is on
on.
Monday.
Leave it on. I'll check with Amy.
Let's talk what the attorneys really, I guess, this might be really serious.
Yeah,
This could be the first time we've ever
This-
had Boxing Day in
Yeah.
Ketchikan.
Canada Boxing Day.
yeah, I can come back with an answer. This is pretty easy. I just need to look up the state code and see if we're required to have that
I bet you-
Friday before off.
I bet you he's already got the code. He's the code chaser.
3 days?
He's not gonna.
It might be an issue where.
Leave it on, just leave it on and,
It will be an untitled source that answers this, because they don't want to be challenged by name, but they gave them 3 days, so.
leave it on and we'll take 30 seconds at the next meeting.
Sounds good.
Anyone want to limit the debate to 30 seconds? Okay. Okay. Okay, let's go back to Resolution 2023-14. What questions do you have there?
No, I didn't have any other questions. I think it was pretty straightforward and.
Which one are we?
I have some questions.
Well,
opening
we
the budget.
still get to discuss it, right? I mean,
Yeah,
fine with opening it, but
it's all open. We've had a public hearing. It's just a matter, it's now for us to discuss and we can make changes or whatever needs to be done.
I need some training. I'll just say that.
On how to understand all this?
I need some Tylenol, so.
Well, we can, matter of fact, we can actually postpone this until the next meeting, if you'd like.
You're loaded.
I got all sorts of stuff. Pick a color.
I understand all the things that Phil talked about on the first page. And I didn't see anything that I had a problem with. I just don't know that I understand it all. But I would defer to the more senior members of the council. I'm not talking about age.
A lot of this really deals with what we have required as a council. When budget items are moved to a different line, that they're presented to us so that we can approve them or not. And really what we need to look at and see if we feel like these things are being moved appropriately.
I do have a question on item 9, when we talk about the compensation committee. Does that break down to a percentage increase that's being factored into there? Do we know that, Phil?
Item 9 on the amendments, we're talking about the ARPA request?
No, the top 10 highlights, where it
Oh,
talks
so
about the
we would-
compensation committee and the raise.
Are we talking amendment or tentative budget right now?
That's the tentative budget you're looking at.
Okay.
We're looking at the actual budget resolution. Yeah, the budget
Phil won't be
resolution.
here in 2 weeks.
Well, yeah.
He's surprised.
We'll
We're
try and bring
supposed
it
to
up.
help moving Friday. We're just gonna pack it in one
Okay.
door and bring it right back the other side, so he's staying.
I got, do have one. It says, request and budget for internal reviews performed at the request of the council. This is in the executive's budget of $4,000. That's on, is it page? Yep, item 11.
This was in relation to the UOBC investigation, and we hired the outside auditor to come in and look at things in relation to that. So that's what those charges are for.
What page are we on?
Okay,
Item 11.
more detail on that.
Yeah, do you have a?
No more detail than that?
So I think some of the detail on that was, my understanding was that during the UOBC's review, there was an internal review, there was a sheriff's review, multiple different reviews going on, and the executive's one was done through an outside source, so it was a, to help cover the professional services provided by that.
So, yeah, as part of that investigation, our outside auditors that we use for our usual outside independent audit, we're asked to review all of the financial documents related to that situation, and that's what this charge is for.
So was there ever a report filed or anything on that?
Yeah. Yeah, and I believe that was shared with the council when I reported to you in that executive session.
That's the first time I've heard that there was an outside auditor used.
There was a report provided, I believe by Detective Hatch during her report from Joan Simpkins.
I remember that, yeah.
Is there an invoice that goes along with that? Like, was it exactly $4,000 that they
It was
charged?
3,900 and something, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so,
No, go ahead.
state fair for $1,000, what are we doing here?
What number are you on?
Tentative budget.
Oh, tentative.
Yeah, we're on the budget.
We're still on the,
still on
this is on the,
budget opening.
you're jumping around on us.
Go back, Nolan.
These are no fun.
That'll come later.
Micah and I are meeting tomorrow if you want to come join us to talk on tentative budget.
So I have a question for Sheriff Jensen. On the budget opening for, I know you came and spoke to us about some things, but they were more general than specific. Are these are the employee costs and the payroll costs that were outside of the original budget for this year?
Are you talking 26 or 27?
26.
Okay, so I'll answer this one if you don't mind. Okay, so 26 is just a reallocation. You can see that he's only needing a slight increase from the appropriated fund balance of 3,300. What happened is in the March amendment, we did a payroll forecast, I think in February, to pick up all of the year-end compensation committee adjustments. For some reason, and I'm not sure why, the sheriff's office didn't get reallocated. They didn't need more money, really. I mean, 3,000, but for their office, that's a really small amount. It just didn't get moved to the right buckets. And so this is just to kind of true it up for that.
That makes sense, thank you.
Yeah.
I just saw a lot of big numbers. I didn't recognize that the 3,300 was all that was really affected. Okay.
Yeah.
There was nothing else that I saw that caught my eye. I don't know about you guys.
I didn't see anything else either.
I still have a question on what are seasonal employees in the executive office?
Interns.
And what do they do?
What do they do?
Yeah.
One of them has been an intern for Dirk, helping with this budget as well as policy. And the other one has been assisting Janine primarily with transitioning functions, getting things filed and caught up, things like that.
So we're saying with the staff we have in the executive, we still need seasonal employees of that amount?
There's way more work than we could ever do even with them. We have dozens of boards and committees and dozens of departments. We could use 4 times as much staff as we have now and keep them busy.
What's changed to create that?
Yeah.
We went years and years and years with just Janine and her doing all of the stuff for the council as well as the executive office. We didn't have a deputy executive. We didn't have a policy analyst. We didn't have interns. What has changed to create such an increase in workload that we need all that extra?
I'm not sure if the workload has increased. I don't know how it's possible that everything could have been done in the past. We're not doing everything we could do now. For example, we have tomorrow a health department meeting and a BRAG meeting. How much time do we spend preparing for those meetings, researching, having staff research agenda items, being prepared for that meeting, let alone being proactive and proposing policy. It's really with all of the departments and boards and committees that we have, we could spend many times the amount of staff hours that we're spending now if we were gonna do it right. Can we just show up at each meeting and not be prepared or not look at anything beforehand or not proactively propose anything? Yeah, we could do that. Is that the best way to do it? I don't think so. This is about the cheapest staff you can get. They're very efficient for the amount of work you get out of an intern for how much you pay them is pretty cheap. And we're not asking for any more money for this. We're using savings because the budget is under budget, and so all we're doing is saying, since we have some salary savings, we'd like to use that in this way. So there's no extra money being asked for. In fact, we're going to be under budget significantly by the end of the year.
Will you need interns constantly, or is it just at a certain time of the year? Will this be ongoing? How will that work, David?
I think every department should have interns. I'd love for us to have interns. Throughout my entire career, well, at least the last 20 years, I've always had interns. I've always used interns. They're always helpful to fill in the gaps between the full-time staff and what needs to be done. It's also a good source of recruiting because when you have openings, you have people who've already been vetted, they've already been trained, they already are familiar with the organization. So historically, interns that I've used have oftentimes ended up as full-time employees. In fact, Stephen Nelson in the back row was an intern of mine many years ago when I was at Nibley City while he was working on his undergraduate degree. And that was a great way to recruit him and find out and vet that he was a very valuable staff person. So I think it's a good thing. I would encourage more of our departments to do it.
Well, I guess my concern is that there's always the tendency to grow the size of government.
Yep.
And again, I spent the first 4 years as a county council member with the executive department with 2 employees, the executive and Janine. And Janine served the council. And so I guess I'm thinking, are we looking at a necessity or a luxury? And is this something that maybe we need to consider as we go forward? I mean, I'm not in disagreement with the change on the budget amendment here, but I just think moving forward, we need to be conscious of what is needed and what are luxuries, and not grow the size of our county government and staff. And so that's just my.
I fully agree. As I was looking at the municipal services, they showed 10,000 for overtime for our road department for snow removal. I'm like, that was a good deal if we got our roads cleaned on overtime for $10,000 last year. And here I see 15,000 for seasonal employees. I can see that.
They could have used more help.
Yes, and so and as I've asked before, when we talk about ARPA, we talk about all of these other things, money that's going to be away, and we're going to be looking for ways to fund this. I'm just looking for ways to cut, so.
Just to reiterate, we're not asking for any more money.
Understood.
Yeah.
Just to reiterate, we're looking where to cut to.
Well, I know, I look at things like that and I'm sitting there, I'm going, well, yeah, you could probably use them, you know, everybody could probably use them and then it may free them up to go do other things. Now, are the things that they are doing, are they really necessary to run the county? Or should we be staying here and running the county and maybe doing some of these legwork things with these people? I wonder, attending a lot of these photo ops, whether it's really necessary when we could maybe pay less here and stay and do more just within the department. I think that would probably be more valuable. Plus, I think now the executive department, their responsibility has actually come down quite a bit since we've taken the finance. The finance responsibility has now been taken and given to the auditor.
Well, I would disagree with that.
And with that, can I speak? Can I speak, please? And with that, as we take that down, I think that we probably ought to adjust some of that responsibility and funds we probably need to adjust. I'm worried that we've become very heavy, that there are people, even in our national delegations, that have less number of people working for them as staff as we have in the executive department, and we really shouldn't be that heavy for a county department. So, now go ahead.
I would disagree that my responsibilities have diminished. In fact, I would say that my responsibilities have increased. I think there's probably a misunderstanding of what my role has been in relation to financial oversight, as well as I think everything that I do. I would invite each of you to come spend a day with me and do a ride along in the executive office. Come learn what we do and what our responsibilities are and what we're working on. My responsibilities as far as finance have not diminished. I still have a responsibility to oversee what happens with the public's dollars here, just as you do, just as our auditor does. We each have a responsibility to make sure those things are done. I feel like my responsibility has actually increased now because I don't have direct control over those people who are managing the day-to-day finances, and therefore I have an additional oversight responsibility, I believe, to make sure things are being done because I'm not directing them. And I think there's a misunderstanding of how exactly that was directed in the past and how much time that took from me or my office in the past. We were not micromanaging that department. We were not telling them what to do on a daily basis. Spend more money here, less there, increase here, decrease there. That's just not the way that it functions. Our role has always been one of oversight, and that's still our role. We still have a responsibility to oversee and make sure things are done right, and that's what we'll continue to do. As far as growing the office, I haven't added any positions in the time that I've been there. Before I was elected, a chief deputy position was created and a support staff for that person was created. That was put into the budget before I was elected. The staffing there is the same as it was before I was elected. There was one of those positions that was vacant. There have been interns over time. There was intern money in our budget last year, and we actually took it out. We took it out for this year. And the only reason why we are proposing to use some money for interns is because we have so much savings in our budget. We're gonna at the end of the year have a significant amount of savings in our budget, and if somebody wants to come and see how much work there is, like I said, we don't do a fraction of the work that we could do. We only have so many hours in the day, and it's not like we're adding people to do personal stuff for us. They're doing the people's work. Whatever they do is for our citizens. That's who's being served by this. If we do more, we're doing more for the citizens. Not for me personally, not for Dirk personally, not for Janine personally. It's for the citizens, all of this work. So anything we do benefits our community.
See, I have a question there because some of the citizens are saying, and it says by the code that you go about the business of the county, but yet when there are functions going on, how many staff of the executive are at some of these functions? When a citizen goes and sees 4 people from the executive office at one meeting, that seems overstaffed for that meeting to me.
That's a rare occasion. I'm trying to think of times when that's happened. I'm struggling to think of some.
But it happens, right?
It has happened before where we've had more than one staff member at an event.
And so that's where
So
the
that's very
citizens'
rare.
view is, maybe we've booked too heavy there when we're talking about doing the business of the county and the county employees.
You're saying focusing too heavy on public relation type things, is that what
Yes.
you're saying?
Yes, when it should be business of the county and those type of things. And granted, there's some benefit from that, I suspect, but at the same time, is it at the benefit of taxpayer dollars or whatever else is going on there, is my point. And that's why I'm looking at this, and especially when I'm saying, okay, $10,000, I mean, those guys in the road department cleaned the roads amazingly, and if it was only $10,000 of overtime, hats off to them. And I'm sitting here saying, okay, we've got a budget and we've got to worry about roads, we've got all of these other things that you talked about, a capital and structure and investment and everything else. We got to be looking at that. I mean, and this gets back to Mr. Zucchi brought up a piece about a recreational facility in the county. I mean, we're asking as citizens, they're going to be bonding for a new school, we're going to be bonding for this open space. When you look at what's going on in the county as far as we can't even get a library system going between the county, we haven't got a garbage thing going through the county, and if we're building a new school, it seems to me there becomes a great advantage of the school creating a recreation facility for our community in those areas. So all I'm saying is looking at keeping the dollars working at the most effective and keeping it down in cost. So
For tonight's discussion though, for that actual budget opening, where it's not taking any more money out of the budget, should we like say moving forward, the intern thing is a discussion to have moving forward, but for this one right here, it would be okay.
Well,
Like it's already,
I'd agree with that.
yeah, like, cause the money's already there in their department, and I believe the interns have already been paid. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Interns have already been paid that
Yeah,
much?
we've had interns, because we had the salary savings. I just felt like it would be better to show it in a different category than the regular employee salary. And so, I'm really moved doing this for you, because this is something I've heard that the council wants, is to be, if we're gonna use something from one category, that we should come and have it moved to another category.
I agree with that. The whole idea of whether we should approve interns in the budget moving forward is a different discussion than this budget opening right here.
Right.
Is what I believe, and so,
And that's right, I agree. I maybe shouldn't have brought up the other thing. I apologize to get things muddied up a little bit here.
And I know the perspective of the people out there that have talked to me are also expressing the same thing that Nolan has mentioned there, and that's what we've got to trim. So, okay.
are there any other things in this budget opening that gives concern?
No, I noticed, I was worried about all of the, the insurance stuff and that, but I've got a real good explanation, Phil, from that. Let's see, there was one other, but I think you also addressed that. I think the software stuff for, on the ARPA that was generated because from our discussions that we've been having with ordinance and policy, trying to get a tracker system going in that. I'm very much in favor of that too. I think that's a good one. So, no, that's completely, I'll entertain motions, or if you need more time to think about it, it's completely up to you.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to suspend the rules and make a motion to approve Resolution 2023-14. The budget amendment placed before us.
I'll second.
Moving second, we approve resolution 20, well, let's see. Do we have to
2023.
waive the rules, or do we have to suspend the rules on that one?
Yeah, it's an initial.
Initial, so we suspend the rules for resolution 2023-14, past the opening of the 2023 budget. Is there any discussion? Who seconded that one?
Me.
Seconded, okay, and is there any discussion? Hearing none, proceed to vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No, I will say nay on that, so. Okay. And then now we are all the way down to the garbage. The garbage. We've been talking all about this, now we get to the garbage. Bill, it's the most exciting thing you ever talk about tonight.
They just leave.
Okay, so garbage, there is one change that I would want to make to the fee schedule that was provided. I was just informed tonight that they've negotiated with Waste Management to keep the green waste at $5 instead of $9 for one more month. So that only affects like 8 people. And it's only for 1 month.
Literally
but,
just 8 people?
Yeah, it's not financial sound to do green waste in the county, so they limited it during Logan's time. So the plan for the green waste is to do it for 1 month and then take the winter to actually discuss what the real plan is for green waste. So everything else is we've taken what Waste Management has given to us in their contract. It was recommended also by I can't remember who the email was originally from that I got forwarded to me, but they recommend an average of about $2 for an admin fee. We have decided to in this we were suggesting not to have a specific admin fee, but to just have the rates be. It's ended up being $2. We were the same as everyone else, and just increase the 90 and the 60 gallon can by $2 from what Waste Management is, and that's how we'll pick that up. So. Everything else should be what Waste Management. The other 2 things is
that what, now the city's doing the same thing, basically?
So
or are they having admin fees?
The recommendation was admin fees, $2 admin fee. You get less complaints when you just build it into the rate.
Yeah.
But essentially, we're doing what they're doing.
They get mad and say, "What are you doing for $2?"
Right.
Yeah.
So. Let me see. This was passed on from Lindsay Peterson. So they're the ones that recommended the $2 admin fee and then the change on the green waste.
Options for annual pay?
So I guess that's the downside of no admin fee. Annual pay, previously our admin fee was 0, 1, and 3. If they paid for a year in advance, then they would waive the admin fee. So if you wanted to provide that, then we would probably need to break out the admin fee separate. I don't have the number on how many people take advantage of that. So
I do.
Yeah, you take advantage of that.
Yeah, I just come and pay it for the year, be done.
So
Saves $24 a year.
Yeah.
What's that?
You save $24 a year.
He saves 36 right now.
36 now.
Yeah,
It'll be 24 after this, or depending on whatever you decide. So.
But that's that few, then.
I don't know for sure. I know quite a few do it, but that's just the people that come in and do it. I mean, we get tons of payments to the mail, so that aren't doing that.
What do you think?
I'm okay.
Can somebody explain what it means, like GB 1 pickup week residential 90 gallons? What? That's the monthly rate?
Yes.
Okay.
Get picked up once a week.
Yes, that is the
garbage. One pickup per week, and then.
Yes, and
the size of it, and that's the fee on the right. So the expensive ones, what are those?
Those are commercial. Those are usually the dumpsters. We don't have very many of those. The county is unique, unlike the cities where there are enough people in a cluster that have a dumpster instead of individual garbage cans. We're working through the details on that, and so that's why you will see a $2, what do we call it, sorry?
Shared dumpster split.
Shared dumpsters, yeah. It's our way of picking up the admin fee, because what they do is if there's 5 people sharing a dumpster, we will divide that dumpster by 5 and then add on the service fee to pick up the admin fee. So if you were to split out the admin fee separately, then you could probably just get rid of that one as well, or just rename that one, yeah. There's options.
I'll just say again, I mentioned this when they first came to us, the city of Smithfield went with their own garbage person. That was not Waste Management, but,
Econo Waste.
yeah, so we contacted Waste Management, who is gonna take care of the dumpster that we have at our business, and it was a lot less expensive. So I think Waste Management is I think we're in a good contract with decent fees, and I think their contract terms were better, and so I feel comfortable with what.
Yeah, and commercial will go directly to Waste Management. So these rates here are just for the few groups of people that do a dumpster.
These aren't commercial.
One thing that the Waste Management, when I talked to them, recommended was to, increase the prices to build kind of a little bit of surplus. Where their prices were slightly higher than Logan's originally, we thought it might be best to not hit it all up front, so it was like a huge $5 or $6 increase, and with the $2 admin fee, it's only like, what is it, $3 increase. So that's easier to bite, and then we can maybe do an increment next year. Because Waste Management has said that rate will probably increase, not a lot, but each year.
Price of fuel.
I know.
Any other comments on that? What do you think? Oh, if you agree with it, I'll
I move
entertain.
to approve the updated garbage fee schedule as presented.
Oh, can we amend not that it's a big deal, but can we amend the green waste from 9 to 5?
Amending the green waste to $5.
W residential 90 gallon from 9 to 5.
Thank you.
For 1 month, right?
Yeah, for 1 month.
For 1 month.
Yeah, for those 8 people.
Yep.
Okay.
$40.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded that we approve the garbage.
Suspend the rules, isn't it?
I guess we'll.
Yeah, you do.
It is initial. We'll suspend the rules and that we will, and pass the updated garbage fee schedule with the adjustment of green waste from $9 to $5 for 1 month. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, that's done. Real quick, USU homecoming parade.
Still a question mark on me. I might
Me
be out of
too.
town, but don't know.
Is that next Saturday?
Yeah.
You got the
It's gonna
council
rain.
party, everybody, October 17th, 6 o'clock at Gordy's house. I hope you can all attend. And then we got the UAC convention. We can start getting reservations on that. And this number D right there, renumbering resolution.
Yeah, just really quickly, 2 weeks ago, council passed resolution 2023-12.
Oh.
That this was the changing the CVTD board. Council already passed resolution 2023-12.
Oh,
So I just need a vote. That was my mistake. It was brought to me by the clerk's office. I just need a vote renumbering
Okay.
that to 2023-17.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Move and second that we change that 2023-12 to 2023-17. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes. Quick council member reports before we go to executive session. Carl?
I've said enough tonight. Nothing, thank you.
I feel the same way.
Okay.
Aye.
Okay, and I've said no. Okay, sounds good. I'll entertain a motion to go to executive session for that following reason.
Move to go to executive session.
Second.
For the strategy session to discuss pending and reasonably intimate litigation. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Okay.